The wind howled across the Siberian tundra like a living beast, carrying snow so thick it erased the world beyond arm's reach. Anya Nikolaeva pulled her reindeer hide coat tighter as she guided her small herd through the white chaos. At 28, she had weathered countless storms, but this one felt different, angrier, more determined to claim lives. The temperature had dropped to -71 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. Her breath formed instant ice crystals that tinkled as they fell. The reindeer, usually sure-footed on frozen ground, stumbled and bellowed in distress. Their normally keen instincts seemed confused by the storm's ferocity. Anya's family had been traveling to their winter camp when the blizzard struck without warning. In the chaos of swirling snow and panicked animals, she became separated from the main group. Her calls were swallowed by the wind. The familiar landmarks, a bent birch tree, a distinctive rock formation, had vanished beneath the white shroud. As darkness approached, bringing temperatures that could kill within hours, Anya realized the terrible truth. She was alone in one of Earth's most hostile environments. Her survival kit contained basic tools, but no food. The nearest settlement lay hundreds of kilometers away across trackless wilderness. The storm showed no signs of weakening. If anything, it seemed to intensify as night fell. Anya's reindeer huddled together, their thick coats already accumulating dangerous ice. She had perhaps hours before hypothermia would claim them all. In this moment of absolute crisis, generations of Yakut survival wisdom would be her only salvation. Anya's grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "The earth itself will shelter you when the sky becomes your enemy." These weren't mere words. They were survival instructions passed down through countless generations of Yakut nomads who had thrived in the world's coldest inhabited region. The permafrost beneath her feet, frozen solid for thousands of years, would become her salvation. Using her traditional metal-tipped digging stick and a small axe, Anya began the back-breaking work of carving into the iron-hard ground. Each strike sent painful vibrations through her already numb hands, but she couldn't stop. The alternative was death. The ancient technique required precise knowledge, too shallow, and the shelter would collapse or fail to provide adequate insulation. Too deep, and she'd exhaust herself before completion. The ideal depth was roughly 2 meters. Deep enough to escape the wind, shallow enough to retain body heat. Her reindeer watched with intelligent eyes as she worked. These animals, bred for Arctic survival, understood danger instinctively. Their milk, rich in fat and nutrients, had sustained Yakut peoples through countless harsh winters. But Anya knew she needed to preserve their strength carefully. They were her lifeline. As she dug, the physical exertion helped maintain her body temperature, but she could feel exhaustion creeping in. Her movements became more deliberate, more economical. Every calorie burned had to serve a purpose. The storm continued its relentless assault above, but beneath the surface she was creating a pocket of survivable space. The work was agonizing, but each handful of frozen earth brought her closer to shelter. Her ancestors had survived ice ages using these same techniques. Tonight, that ancient wisdom would be tested once again. After 6 hours of grueling excavation, Anya had carved a cave roughly 3 meters long, 2 meters wide, and deep enough to stand upright. But the real work was just beginning. A simple hole in the ground wouldn't suffice. She needed to transform this crude shelter into a sophisticated survival system. Using techniques her father had taught her, Anya began shaping the interior walls. The permafrost, while incredibly hard, could be carved and molded when approached correctly. She created sleeping platforms at different levels, understanding that warm air rises and cold air settles. The highest platform would be her bed, the lowest would serve as a cold trap. The entrance required careful engineering. Too large and precious heat would escape. too small, and carbon dioxide could accumulate dangerously. She carved a tunnel entrance that sloped upward into the main chamber, creating a natural airlock that would trap warm air inside while allowing fresh air circulation. Her reindeer, meanwhile, had found their own shelter in a natural depression nearby. These remarkable animals could survive temperatures that would kill most mammals, but even they needed protection from the wind. Anya used her remaining energy to build a windbreak from snow blocks, giving them a fighting chance. Inside her ice fortress, the temperature was already noticeably warmer, perhaps -40 degrees instead of -70, still deadly cold but survivable with proper clothing and body heat conservation. She arranged her few possessions, a small knife, fire-starting materials, and most importantly, a wooden bowl for milking. The shelter was complete, but it was only the foundation of survival. Now came the greater challenge, staying alive for however long this storm might last, with no food except what her reindeer could provide. Dawn brought no relief from the storm, only a grey half-light that barely penetrated the swirling snow. Anya emerged from her shelter to check on her reindeer, her breath forming a cloud so thick it obscured her vision. The animals had survived the night, but they were stressed and hungry. Reindeer milk had sustained her people for millennia, but obtaining it in these conditions required skill and patience. The animals were nervous, their usual docility replaced by survival instincts. Anya approached slowly, speaking in the low, rhythmic tones her grandmother had taught her, sounds that reindeer found calming. The first doe allowed her to approach, recognizing Anya's scent despite the chaos. Milking with frozen fingers was agony, but the warm liquid that filled her wooden bowl was liquid life itself. Reindeer milk contains 3 times the fat content of cow's milk, along with essential vitamins and minerals perfectly suited for Arctic survival. She managed to collect nearly a liter before the animals became too agitated to continue. This precious liquid would need to last the entire day, perhaps longer. Anya knew from childhood stories that a person could survive on reindeer milk alone for extended periods, but she'd never imagined testing this knowledge personally. The milk's high-fat content would provide crucial calories for maintaining body heat, while its proteins would help preserve muscle mass during what might be a prolonged ordeal. She drank sparingly, allowing the rich liquid to warm her from within before returning to her shelter. Back in her ice cave, Anya rationed the remaining milk into small portions. Each sip was a conscious decision, a calculation between immediate comfort and long-term survival. Outside, the storm continued its relentless assault, but inside, she had bought herself another day of life. By the 3rd day, the storm had not weakened. If anything, it seemed to have settled into a pattern of sustained fury that showed no signs of breaking. Anya had established a routine that kept both her body and mind occupied, but the psychological challenges of isolation were becoming as dangerous as the cold. She divided each day into segments: morning milking, shelter maintenance, exercise periods, and rest. The exercise was crucial, not just for physical warmth, but for mental health. In the confined space of her ice cave, she performed traditional Yakut movements, stretching and strengthening exercises that her people had developed for long winter months. The silence between wind gusts was perhaps the most challenging aspect. In normal circumstances, she would be surrounded by family, sharing stories, songs, and the constant activity of nomadic life. Now, her only companions were her own thoughts and the occasional sounds from her reindeer outside. She began talking to herself, then to her absent family, describing her situation aloud as if they could hear her. This wasn't madness. It was a survival technique. Maintaining verbal communication, even one-sided, helped preserve her connection to humanity and prevented the dangerous spiral into despair that could prove fatal. Memory became her entertainment and her anchor. She recited traditional stories, sang songs her mother had taught her, and mentally reviewed every detail of her family's faces. These mental exercises served a dual purpose. They kept her mind sharp and provided emotional comfort in the face of overwhelming isolation. The reindeer, too, seemed to understand their shared predicament. They had moved closer to her shelter, their presence providing psychological comfort that was nearly as valuable as their milk. In this frozen wasteland, they were her only connection to life beyond survival. A week into her ordeal, Anya had consumed roughly 7 liters of reindeer milk, her only sustenance. Her body was adapting to the extreme caloric restriction, but the changes were noticeable. Her clothes hung looser, and she felt the constant gnawing of hunger that had become her new normal. The reindeer were also showing signs of stress. Without access to their usual diet of lichens and Arctic grasses buried beneath meters of snow, they were surviving on their own fat reserves. Their milk production was decreasing, forcing Anya to reduce her already meager rations further. She had learned to make each milking session count. The animals were most cooperative in the early morning, when they were calm, and the extreme cold hadn't yet sapped their energy. She could now extract milk with practiced efficiency, wasting not a single drop of the precious liquid. To supplement the declining milk supply, Anya began consuming snow for hydration, melting it in her mouth to avoid the energy cost of heating it. This provided necessary water while conserving the calorie-rich milk for sustenance. The technique required careful timing. Too much cold water could lower her core body temperature dangerously. Her shelter had become more sophisticated through constant improvement. She had carved additional storage niches, improved the ventilation system, and even created a small area where she could exercise more freely. These modifications weren't luxuries. They were survival necessities that improved her chances of lasting until rescue or until the storm finally broke. The psychological adaptation was perhaps more remarkable than the physical. What had initially seemed like an impossible situation was becoming, day by day, a manageable routine. Her mind was learning to find normalcy in circumstances that would have seemed unthinkable just weeks earlier. 2 weeks into the storm, the temperature dropped even further. Anya's makeshift thermometer, a piece of metal that she could judge by touch, indicated conditions that pushed the boundaries of human survival. At these temperatures, exposed skin would freeze in under a minute, and even breathing became dangerous without proper protection. Her ice shelter, which had seemed adequate before, now required constant maintenance. The extreme cold made the permafrost even harder, but it also made her carved walls more brittle. She spent hours each day reinforcing weak spots and improving insulation, using techniques her ancestors had perfected over thousands of years. The reindeer were struggling. Despite their incredible adaptations to Arctic life, these conditions tested even their limits. Anya had to make the heartbreaking decision to focus her care on the 2 strongest animals, knowing that their survival was linked to her own. The others would have to endure on their own reserves. Her daily milk ration had dropped to less than half a liter, barely enough to sustain basic metabolic functions. She could feel her body consuming its own muscle tissue for energy, but her mind remained sharp. Hunger had become a constant companion, but not an overwhelming one. Her body was learning to function on minimal resources. Sleep became both refuge and challenge. In her shelter, wrapped in reindeer hide and using her own body heat for warmth, she could achieve a state that was part sleep, part hibernation. But she had to wake regularly to check on her animals and ensure her shelter's integrity. The storm showed no signs of weakening. Weather patterns in this region could persist for weeks, and Anya was beginning to understand that her ordeal might last much longer than she had initially hoped. This realization required a fundamental shift in her survival strategy. 3 weeks of isolation had stripped away everything non-essential, leaving only the core elements of survival. Anya found herself drawing deeper into the traditional knowledge that had sustained her people through countless generations of Arctic winters. These weren't just survival techniques. They were a complete philosophy of living in harmony with one of Earth's most challenging environments. She began each day with traditional prayers, not from religious conviction, but because the ritual provided structure and mental focus. The words connected her to her ancestors, who had faced similar trials and emerged victorious. This spiritual dimension of survival was proving as important as the physical techniques. Her grandmother's stories took on new meaning in this context. Tales that had seemed like simple entertainment now revealed themselves as sophisticated survival manuals encoded in narrative form. Every detail, from the way heroes rationed food to how they maintained hope during dark times, contained practical wisdom. The relationship with her reindeer had evolved beyond simple utility. These animals, sharing her struggle for survival, had become partners in the truest sense. She could read their moods, understand their needs, and they seemed to respond to her emotional state as well. This interspecies cooperation was fundamental to Yakut culture and now proved essential to survival. Her body had adapted remarkably to the extreme conditions. What had initially felt like starvation was now a state of efficient energy conservation. Her metabolism had slowed, her movements had become more economical, and her mind had achieved a clarity that came from absolute focus on essential tasks. The storm continued, but Anya was no longer simply enduring it. She was living within it, finding ways to thrive despite circumstances that would have seemed impossible to survive just weeks earlier. By the fourth week, Anya faced her greatest crisis yet. One of her remaining reindeer, weakened by the prolonged ordeal, had died during the night. The loss was devastating, not just for the reduced milk supply, but for the psychological impact of losing a companion who had shared her struggle. The surviving reindeer was clearly distressed, calling mournfully for its lost companion. Anya knew that reindeer were social animals, and isolation could cause them to lose the will to live. She spent extra time with the animal, providing comfort and companionship that was as much for her own benefit as for the reindeer's. Her daily milk ration was now reduced to barely a cup, perhaps 200 milliliters of the rich liquid that had kept her alive for nearly a month. At this level of nutrition, she was operating at the absolute minimum for human survival. Every movement required conscious effort. Every decision demanded careful consideration of energy expenditure. The psychological challenges intensified with the physical ones. Doubt crept in during the long, dark hours. Had her family given up searching? Was she fighting a losing battle against forces too powerful to overcome? These thoughts were as dangerous as the cold. They could sap the will to survive that was keeping her alive. But alongside the doubt came a growing sense of accomplishment. She had survived conditions that would have killed most people within days. Each morning that she woke up was a victory against impossible odds. This realization provided a different kind of nourishment, the knowledge that she was proving the incredible resilience of human beings when armed with traditional knowledge and unbreakable determination. The storm still raged, but Anya was no longer the same person who had been caught in its fury 4 weeks earlier. 5 weeks into her survival ordeal, Anya had achieved something remarkable. She had found a sustainable balance in an unsustainable situation. Her body, operating on minimal nutrition, had adapted to function efficiently on the limited resources available. Her mind had developed strategies for maintaining hope and purpose despite the ongoing isolation. The single surviving reindeer had become more than a source of milk. It was her connection to life itself. She had learned to read its moods and needs with extraordinary precision, understanding that their fates were completely intertwined. The animal seemed to understand this too, showing a level of cooperation and trust that went beyond normal human-animal relationships. Her shelter had evolved into a sophisticated survival system. Through constant refinement, she had created multiple chambers for different purposes: sleeping, storage, and even a small area for the limited exercise that her weakened state allowed. The ice walls, polished smooth by her body heat, reflected what little light filtered down from above. The psychological adaptations were perhaps more remarkable than the physical ones. Anya had developed a rich internal life that sustained her through the long hours of darkness and silence. She composed songs, told herself stories, and engaged in complex mental exercises that kept her mind sharp despite the physical deprivation. Her daily routine had become a meditation on survival itself. Each task, milking, shelter maintenance, exercise, was performed with ritualistic precision. This wasn't obsessive behavior. It was a conscious strategy for maintaining mental health and physical efficiency when both were under extreme stress. The storm continued, but it no longer seemed like an enemy to be defeated. Instead, it had become part of the environment she inhabited, as natural and unchangeable as the permafrost beneath her feet. 6 weeks of survival had transformed Anya into something new. Not quite the person who had entered the storm, but someone forged by extreme circumstances into a more essential version of herself. The constant hunger had become background noise, present but no longer overwhelming. Her body had learned to extract maximum value from every drop of reindeer milk. The psychological landscape of her survival had shifted dramatically. What had begun as an emergency to be endured had become a way of life to be mastered. She found herself taking pride in small improvements to her shelter, in successful milking sessions, in simply waking up each morning with her mind and body intact. Her reindeer companion had also adapted to their shared circumstances. The animal had learned to conserve energy, moving only when necessary, and seeming to understand that its milk was keeping them both alive. The bond between them had deepened beyond anything Anya had experienced with animals before. They were truly partners in survival. The stories her grandmother had told took on new layers of meaning. She understood now that these weren't just tales of heroic survival, but detailed instruction manuals for maintaining humanity under inhuman conditions. Every detail, from breathing techniques to mental exercises, had practical applications she was discovering through necessity. Her physical condition had stabilized at a new baseline. She was significantly thinner, her movements more deliberate, but her core functions remained strong. Most remarkably, her mind had achieved a clarity that came from absolute focus on essential tasks. There was no room for trivial concerns when every decision affected survival. The storm showed no signs of breaking, but Anya was no longer counting days. She had entered a state of indefinite endurance, prepared to continue this existence for as long as necessary. 12 weeks and 6 days after the storm began, Anya heard something that had become foreign to her ears. Human voices calling her name. The search party, led by her brother and guided by traditional tracking methods, had finally located her shelter. What they found challenged their understanding of human endurance. Anya emerged from her ice cave like a figure from ancient legend, gaunt but alert, weakened but unbroken. She had survived 90 days on nothing but reindeer milk, maintaining not just life, but sanity, in conditions that would have killed most people within days. Her single surviving reindeer, though thin, was also alive, a testament to the partnership that had sustained them both. The rescue team was amazed by the sophistication of her shelter and the evidence of her systematic approach to survival. Every detail showed careful planning and execution based on traditional knowledge that few people still possessed. She had not merely endured the storm, she had created a sustainable existence within it. Her first words to her rescuers were not about her ordeal, but questions about her family's well-being. This response revealed something crucial about her survival. She had maintained her essential humanity despite being stripped down to the most basic elements of existence. The person who emerged from the ice was changed, but not broken. The storm finally broke 3 days after her rescue, as if nature itself had been waiting for this moment. Anya's survival became legendary among the Yakut people, not just for its physical achievement, but for what it demonstrated about the power of traditional knowledge and human resilience. Her story spread beyond her community, inspiring people worldwide with its demonstration that humans, when armed with ancestral wisdom and unbreakable determination, can survive even the most impossible circumstances. In an age of modern technology and urban comfort, Anya had proven that the ancient skills of survival remain as relevant as ever.